Core economic thesis: McDonald's isn't really a burger company, it's one of the largest commercial real estate landlords in the world, and the burgers are simply what keeps the rent checks coming in. Central question: if McDonald's makes most of its profit from real estate, why does it bother selling burgers at all? Okay, so you want to open a McDonald's franchise. You pay a fee, you get the golden arches, the recipes, the marketing machine, the whole system already built for you. Customers already trust the brand before you even flip your first patty. You sell burgers and fries for a few dollars each, ingredient costs are low, volume is high, and the money should just keep rolling in. Millions of people eat there every single day. It sounds like one of the safest bets in business, a proven formula, a built-in customer base, and a product people buy on autopilot. But here's the thing. Before you sell a single burger, you're already paying McDonald's twice. Once for the right to use the brand. And once for the building you're standing in, because in the vast majority of cases, McDonald's owns the land and the restaurant, and you're renting it from them. That sounds like a small detail. It isn't. It's the entire business model. McDonald's operates through two very different engines. There's the restaurant business, the one everyone sees, the one that sells burgers, and there's the real estate business, which almost nobody thinks about. The restaurant side generates a lot of revenue, but it runs on thin margins, somewhere around 15% after expenses. The real estate side generates less revenue on paper, but the margins are enormous, north of 80%. That's not a rounding error. That's a completely different business hiding inside a fast food company. Here's how it actually works. McDonald's corporate acquires the land, builds or approves the restaurant, and then leases it to a franchisee. The franchisee pays rent, often structured as a base amount plus a percentage of sales on top of a royalty fee and an advertising contribution. By 2024, the majority of McDonald's total revenue was coming from franchised restaurants, meaning the rent and royalty payments franchisees send back to the company, rather than from food sold at company-run locations. And when you separate the two divisions and look purely at profit rather than revenue, the franchised side generated the overwhelming majority of the company's operating profit, while the company-operated restaurants contributed only a small fraction of it. Now follow the money one level deeper. Franchisees aren't just paying for a proven system. They're financing McDonald's real estate portfolio. That portfolio has been estimated at tens of billions of dollars, making up the vast majority of the company's total assets, closer to an enormous collection of income-producing properties than a restaurant chain. Why does this structure work? Because it flips the usual risk equation. A franchisee has to put up the bulk of the opening capital, commonly well over $1 million for a single location, while McDonald's supplies the location, the brand, and the operating system. If the restaurant struggles, the franchisee absorbs most of the operational risk. But the rent still gets collected either way, because it's frequently tied to a guaranteed minimum, not just a share of sales. That's the part most people miss. McDonald's built a system where its most reliable income doesn't depend on how good the burgers are that week, it depends on real estate economics, location value, lease structure, and long-term appreciation. This is also McDonald's competitive moat. A competitor can copy a menu. A competitor can copy a marketing campaign. What's much harder to copy is decades of accumulated prime real estate on busy corners in thousands of cities worldwide, locked into long-term leases with built-in rent escalation. That's not a recipe. That's a real estate empire that took 70 years to assemble, corner by corner. Of course, this model isn't risk-free. It depends on franchisees staying profitable enough to keep paying rent. If consumer spending drops, if labor and food costs spike, or if a franchisee's location underperforms, McDonald's still has a tenant problem to manage, not just a menu problem. And in a downturn, an empire built on thousands of leased and owned properties carries real exposure to shifts in commercial real estate values and interest rates, since much of that portfolio was financed with debt. So if you actually wanted to participate in this business, buying a franchise isn't really starting a burger restaurant. It's agreeing to become a tenant and operator inside somebody else's real estate portfolio, with the brand and systems included in the deal, but the rent as the built-in constant. Owning shares in McDonald's stock, by contrast, is closer to owning a small slice of one of the biggest landlords on the planet, one that happens to sell fries on the side. Which brings us back to the original question. What is McDonald's really selling? It's selling the appearance of a fast food company built on top of the substance of a real estate company, one where burgers are simply the mechanism that keeps every location occupied, every lease paying rent, and every franchisee locked into the system. Key economic concepts covered: franchising as a capital transfer mechanism. Real estate as a hidden profit engine. Margin differences between operating and licensing a business. Economic moats built on accumulated physical assets. Risk transfer between franchisor and franchisee. Final business lesson: the most valuable part of a business is rarely the product people see, it's the asset quietly sitting underneath it.